I'm blind. Okay.
Hello, hello. Alright, everybody, thank you guys so much for coming back. Make yourselves comfortable. We are ready for our next speaker. Please put your hands together and give a warm welcome for Darren! Is it that? What else am I going to say? Not scripted.
I'm just, it was a genuine question. Hello.
I let you self-intro. Yeah.
Hello everyone. Those of you who know me, maybe you can go home now. Just kidding. My name is Darren. I take pictures of buildings. I've been doing this for the last 20 years. So just now when I was listening to the fireside chat before this, I felt very old. Because they were saying things like, when we were young, social media. When I was young, there was no social media. In fact, when I was young, there was no digital photography. So I'm from the generation, I'm sure some of you here as well, who grew up learning photography using film. So but I'm very glad that Sony came along the way, because what happened was about 12 years ago, in 2013, Sony launched this thing called the A7R and the A7 series of cameras. And if you look at the date, it's 2013, because this picture I made in Yishun was made on a pre-production camera that I borrowed from Sony in order to make this photo. And it's interesting because this particular HDB estate today doesn't look like this anymore. It's been repainted several times over. Because, fun fact, HDB estates have to be repainted every 7 years. So every 7 years, the estate will change color. So for me, because I photograph a lot of HDB estates, both for work and also for myself, the work never ends. Because the moment you finish everything, you have to start again, because they will have been repainted. So this estate is near where I live, and I was very blown away with the 7R because it was a really small camera. So those of you who remember the camera, I still have my original 7R, which I eventually bought. Of course, I didn't keep the one that I borrowed from Sony, because it was a prototype. So this was shot on a prototype, Alpha 7R. And after using it for a couple of days, I realized that this was going to be the camera for me. So today I'm going to be showing a whole series of architecture pictures made on the 7R series of cameras. I've used the 7R, Mark II, Mark III, Mark IV, and now I'm using the Mark V. And it's come a long way. 2013 and we're now in 2025. Went through one pandemic and still going strong. Okay. So this was also made, this is in Tampines. It is a very interesting housing estate because it's clad entirely brick, and it was the first privately designed HDB estate that was completed in 1994. So what happened is, before the 1990s, it's hard to imagine, before the 1990s, all HDB flats were designed by the HDB. Only after 1991, then Parliament passed a law that said that the HDB should involve private sector architects to design HDB flats, and that's why HDB flats started to look, at least on the outside, a bit more different from the 1990s onwards. So this was again shot on the borrowed Alpha 7R, and because it had 36 megapixels, it was the highest pixel count of any 35mm digital camera at that point in time. I knew that it was something that I wanted. Also because I could adapt all kinds of lenses on it. When the Sony Alpha full-frame system started in 2013, there were only 5 native lenses. And today we have, how many do we have today? 50, 40, maybe more. But back then, we were really limited. But the good thing is, because it was the first full-frame mirrorless system. Today there are other brands, but Sony was the first. I could literally adapt any lens on it. So a lot of the images that you see here would have been shot with adapted lenses, because back then there was not so many native lenses. Okay, so this image is quite interesting. I don't think I've ever shown this image. So those of you that have attended 1,001 of my talks, thank goodness I have something new. This was shot when the Sports Hub just opened, and it involved a lot of climbing to the top of at the top of the Sports Hub, where the dome opens and closes. There is a gangway which is used for maintenance. So in order to get on the roof, you need to climb all the way up to where I shot this from. And a large part of the climb, you are on all fours. So basically, if you can imagine, I had to wear safety boots, I had to wear helmet, I had to wear vest, I had to carry the camera bag and the cameras. And then by the time I reached here, I really don't want to take a picture anymore, I just want to go home. But because it took so much effort to get up there, I had to take the photos. And also, I really remember having to stop and rest before I started to take the pictures, because it was really quite tiring in order to climb all that distance up there. But I think it's a picture that was worth doing, because you don't see many pictures of this floating around, even today. If I could, I would go back and shoot it with the latest and greatest Sony equipment. But I'm not sure I have the access to the Sports Hub anymore. Okay, so this is a HB estate called Royal Court. And Royal Court has changed color like 4 times since I have photographed it, and this was red. After this red, it became green, and now it's brown. And this image was actually made from a building that doesn't exist anymore. It was made from Shaw Tower. So for those of you who photograph Singapore cityscapes, you will know that at the end of Shaw Tower, there used to be a fire escape lift and staircase, and nobody cares if you are there. So you can take the lift all the way up to the top floor. Later I'll show you an image of it. And from that vantage point, with an open window and the fire escape staircase, you have this great view of the city. They're rebuilding Shaw Tower, for example, a new building, but I doubt that there will be this kind of access. So a lot of my work revolves around getting access in order to photograph the views that I need to photograph. Thank goodness I do this for work, so oftentimes the access is granted to me by my clients or people who know people in order to be able to bring me up somewhere. Yeah. So in a way, my work is at the mercy of a lot of other people, and I'm very grateful for that. Okay, so this is a building that many of you may be familiar with, doesn't exist anymore. The original Pearl Bank apartments. The new Pearl Bank has been completed. I haven't taken a second picture of it because I'm not a big fan of the new building. But I was a very big fan of the old building, and I tried to save it. But unfortunately, because of a lot of money involved, it could not be saved. But I have all these pictures of it. And so let me share something which I haven't told a lot of people, but the building's not there anymore, so we can talk about it. In the past, Pearl Bank used to have a kindergarten nursery on the ground floor. So there's this big banner that they advertise on the outside. So if you know the old Pearl Bank, you know that because it was private, you couldn't just walk in. So what I did was I saw the kindergarten banner and there was a number. So I called the number and I said, if I don't live here, can I send my kid to Pearl Bank? And they said, can, yeah, of course. So I said, okay, thanks. So I went to security and said, I'm picking up my son. So that's how I went. But subsequently, because I knew people who lived there, I I would just sign in at security to say that I'm visiting so and so. Yeah. So that's legit. This is another building that, well, a complex that doesn't exist anymore, Rochor Centre, just down the road from here. It's currently a big hole because they're building the exit for the north-south viaduct that's coming down from Woodlands. The interesting thing about Rochor is really not so much its colour, even though that was made a big deal out of. And the interesting thing was the announcement of Rochor's redevelopment coincided with the birth of this app called Instagram in 2010. So what happened was, after that, a lot of Instagrammers went there because Instagram was a new and upcoming app, and the rainbow colored blocks lend themselves to be photographed in all kinds of ways. So I went and photographed it extensively as well, but mainly so that I can document the space because it's gone. And but the interesting thing is this: it's Rochor was built in 1976, and it was one of the quite a number of HDB mixed-use estates in the city. Meaning, at the bottom are shops, like the 3 or 4 floors, and then on top there are flats. So there are quite a number of those, and most of them are still here today. Hong Lim Complex is one of them, Waterloo, Bras Basah, Tanjong Pagar. So all these are HDB mixed-use complexes. And in fact, Rochor is the only one that's been redeveloped. So we're still with the A7R, because this is 2014 only. So in 2015, just before the launch of the newer A7R camera, which was the Mark II, I shot this with my old 7R. And I think some of the people who are younger may not remember this building, the Afro Asia building, because it's been completely demolished and there's a new, funky, new tower there now. But this was the original building that was there at Robinson Road, and there was an MPH bookshop on the ground floor. There's no more MPH bookshops in Singapore anymore. So a lot of my work revolves around documenting these things that don't last forever, and we also don't last forever. So I need the images to last longer than we do, and that is why I always use the 7R series of cameras, because it's got the highest pixel count, and I really need the details in the images, because I'm not just photographing for me, I'm photographing for a time when I'm no longer here and people can access the images. So I need them to be as high quality as possible. Yeah, so here are 2 buildings that have completely changed. Well, 3 actually. So on the left, there's Pearl Bank and Landmark. So both are gone, demolished. The new Landmark is currently being built. The new Pearl Bank is completed. And on the right, there's Furama, which has been recladded. So Furama was originally covered in brown mosaic tiles. So the whole building was covered in brown mosaic tiles, but now it's covered in this grey cladding, this aluminium cladding that basically covers the whole outside, which is a bit sad because it doesn't look as nice. Yeah. So all these images were made on a lens that I used so much that I had to send it in for repair like 3 times. It was the original 7200 f4, the G, not the G Master, because there was no G Master then yet. So there was this 7200, and the reason why I used it so much is because it gives you the 7200 range, and it's very light. So it was f4, but I usually don't shoot at 2.8 for the lens because I don't shoot animals, I don't shoot portraits, I shoot buildings. I have the Mark II version of it, which is smaller, lighter, better, which is quite amazing. Yeah. Okay, so this, again, this is one of those views that you can no longer make today because currently the new State Courts building has come up and is covering this entire view. So I shot this when they were just piling for the new State Courts building back in 2016. So if you remember, the new Steakhouse Towers took about 3 years to complete, and it was completed just before COVID, in late 2019. And in 2016, I was already using the R Mark II, which was 42 megapixels. So you know, there's every pixel counts, right? So 42 is better than 36. So I had 2 of the Mark IIs. And this, how many of you know of this? Few of you know this. Okay. In the 1970s, the HDB built a lot of mosaic playgrounds with animal themes. There's the dragon, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. Then there's the pelican, there's the dove, and all that. A lot of people didn't know that there's also the elephant. So the elephant is hidden in Pasir Ris, right in a small corner of a chalet complex. There used to be the Singapore Telecoms chalet, and then after that it became the Home Team NS chalet. And during COVID, it was completely abandoned. But before that, it was already empty. But I didn't have access. So in order to make this picture, what I had to do was I had to bash through grass that was like about 1.5 meters tall on the perimeter of the outside of the chalet and shoot through the fence. Because thankfully the fence is one of those chain link fence. So I had the 35 1.4 size, which I then stuck through the fence, and then I made this picture. And I believe it was made wide open at f1.4 because I didn't want any chance of the fence being in the photo. So even if I got a little bit of it, it would be severely out of focus and it would look like vignetting, so it's okay. Okay, this is another building that doesn't exist anymore today. Today it's a condo, Florence Residences. This is in Hougang. So it used to be a HUDC estate, and then it was privatized and renamed Florence Regency. So this was shot on the R3 in 2018. By 2018 we had the R3, which was still 42 megapixels, but with much better AF. To be very honest, autofocus doesn't matter so much to me because my subjects seldom run away. so it's okay, it's good, but I don't really need that kind of fast, you know, eye detect, animal detect, insect detect thing. But what I do a lot of is I shoot a lot of my architecture with super long telephotos, like this one. I was shot with 100-400 because I was all the way across Serangoon Stadium on the HDB flats that were in Hougang. So I was really far away. But because I needed this straight-on perspective, I found a block of flats that was straight on but very far away. So I used the 100-400. I believe this was shot at 400. Tanglin Halt. Eventually, most of the blocks of flats from the 1960s, like these ones in Tanglin Halt, will be demolished. They were fondly called the Zap Lao Chu because they were 10 stories tall. And they were all built in 1962, 63, thereabouts. And this shot was made from one of the newer HDB blocks, the 40-story ones. And they show with the 100-400 here. And what's interesting is we've got one of the blocks, block 55, that is illuminated. And then the rest of the blocks are in shadow because it was shot during the monsoon. So during the monsoon, what happens is this: the clouds move very fast. And when the clouds move very fast, your shadows on your buildings move very fast. So if you find a very high vantage point on a very windy day with a lot of clouds, you can get very interesting dramatic lighting if you wait for the light to move around because the clouds come and go and cover the sun and expose the sun. So today it happened quite a bit actually. Yesterday and today there was a lot of cloud movement and there was some sun. So this was one of those shots that I managed to get doing that. Okay, so one of the perks of my job is I get to go to places that a lot of people don't get to go. And the other part of my job is I get to make pictures of these places, and often I get to make better pictures of these places than the people who are also privileged to go because they are not photographers. So this is Bukit Timah Waterworks. So it's right at Mackenzie Road and directly across the road from KK Hospital. It's underground. It's more than 100 years old. It was built by the British in the late 1890s, and it was designed by James McRitchie, the man who McRitchie Reservoir is named after. He was the municipal engineer of Singapore. And the entire interior of the Service Reservoir is made of brick. The roof, as well as the arches, and it's still in use today. So when I went to photograph it, they drained it, and there were a lot of visitors, including PM Lee, former PM Lee. And it's quite funny because I made these pictures for myself, but I shared a set with the QB, and this was before PM Lee visited. So I was not allowed to show the pictures or anything like that. So what happened is, on one of the, like a year after I photographed this, I got a call from the QB, and they said, can we schedule a meeting? We need to talk about your pictures. So I said, okay, what do you want to do? So I went to the meeting, and they said, how do you make your pictures look like that? How come our pictures don't look like yours? Do you bring lights? So I said, no, whatever I used the construction lights they had in the space in order for your people not to fall down and die. And then they're like, oh, okay, we can't make our pictures look like yours. And I said, okay, I'm sorry, I can't help you. There. And then later I realized that was because they needed to show the VVIPs that were going to come and visit. And they were scared that if they show my pictures to them, and then they came and, why doesn't it look like that? They would be disappointed. However, that's not my problem. Okay, so yeah, so on the left we have Shaw Tower. So frequently in the past we would, and I'm sure some of you also did, you see that thing in the middle, that's the fire escape, staircase and lift shaft, lift lobby. So we could take the lift from the car park below all the way to the top, and you get a great view of the sports hub, the stadium, Rochor, Upper Serangoon, the whole Serangoon area. Yeah. And then on the right we have Daimaru, Liangkot. Daimaru used to be an anchor tenant there. It doesn't exist anymore. So these two images were interestingly, they were made on the 12-24G lens, because that lens came out before the G Master, and I used it a lot. So what I did in order to get the images straight is I have to skew. So I tilt the camera in order to get the whole building in the picture, and then in Photoshop I have to correct and bring it back to make it straight. And so sometimes that's the only way to get the picture, because in Singapore the buildings are so close to each other. It's very hard, even if you have a shift lens, to get the whole building in. So this is one of those. By 2020, we had the R Mark IV, which is a 60 megapixel camera, same as the Mark V, 60 megapixel, which is great for me. Because relatively speaking, hard disks are cheap compared to the intrinsic value of the high-res photos that I make, because eventually you'll not be able to make these photos anymore because the color changes, the building gets demolished, etc., etc. So I'd rather pay a lot of money for, relatively more money for hard disk space to store the images, but have the images in the highest resolution possible. Yeah. So this shot of Bishan was made all the way from Ang Mo Kio, because I looked at Google Maps and I saw that the 3 blocks can line up straight. And there's another block in Ang Mo Kio where there's a long corridor where you can walk in order to get it in the exact symmetrical framing. So I did that one morning, and then I managed to get it. I was very pleased because it's completely symmetrical. And this was shot from like 3 kilometers away. Okay, so this is interesting because before morning I was on Clementi and I was just shooting around Clementi. Then I realized, hey, I can see all the way to Bishan. So from Clementi to Bishan is like 15 kilometers, 10 kilometers at least. And then you can see Sky Habitat early in the morning because you go in Clementi Central, there are all these 40-story tall blocks. If you go to the top, you can really see quite far. So this was one of the views that I saw. So a lot of the images that I'm presenting to you need some kind of imagination in order for you to visualize it before you make it. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So, but it doesn't matter what happens. What matters is you try, right? So I went there, I brought the 200-600 up with me, and then at 600 mm, this was the view that I got. So I was very happy. And it was early morning, so still got a bit of morning mist. And really, between Bishan and Clementi, there's the whole central catchment area. So all the reservoirs are in between this picture of me and Sky Habitat. Okay, another interesting story to share. This image, shot from Queenstown, shows the 4 second tallest buildings in Singapore. 4 of them share the same accolade. They're all 280 meters tall. So basically, UOB, One Raffles Place, Capital Spring, and Republic Plaza, they're all 280 meters tall. So the tallest building in Singapore is in Tanjong Pagar, Gorko Tower. It's 290 meters. So these are all 280 meters. And there is a point, and there's a space in Queenstown where you can see this shot, where you can show that they're all of the same height. So what happened is, I had this picture made quite a while, and then I went for a preview event of one of the new buildings by one of the developers in this photo. And then I showed it to the PR person and I said, look, you can see the same height. Then she said, ooh, you found this picture online? No. Yeah, so, I get that sometimes, but it's okay. This was from that building when I met the PR person. And I forgive that moment because on that day, it was storming and there was going to be little chance of us going to the roof. But the rain stopped for a little bit and then I decided to just go up. And then this was what I managed to get. I shot it with a 24-105 because I didn't want to fiddle with fixed lenses, fixed focal length lenses, so that I could work fast. It was still drizzling when I shot this. Yeah, I've been told that I need to wrap up, so I'm going to speed up. Okay? But we're still at the R4 lane. Anyway, this last year already, 2024, I just drove past it. I came down the city. So when you come down the city, you can see Comcentre. And then it gets shorter and shorter every day because it's getting demolished. So this image was something that I'm very happy with because it was shot on a completely clear blue sky day with nice sunshine, showing the main characteristic of the building, which was the space frame on the roof, where they used to hang the microwave dishes. And this was shot on a prototype 7R Mark V when it was just launched. I brought it to this place in Lakeview where there's the last remaining playground of this kind. It's in a private estate. However, the security very slack. So you just wave and then you can go in. So I shot it because, okay, I didn't want to risk things, right? So I had my tripod and all my stuff, but I decided that I was just going to use the 24 G Master because I could shoot it at 1.4 handheld. So I shot this at 1.4 handheld. Okay, this building doesn't exist anymore. Ang Mo Kio Swimming Complex is currently being redeveloped. They're keeping some things, but a lot of it is changing. So I grew up near it and I learned swimming there, so it means a lot to me. And when I was testing the 2070G lens, I went there and shot this image, and I like the fact that there's this lady there that gives you a sense of scale for the image. Okay, I also use the 50 G Master quite a bit because there are some places where if you sell a tripod, they'll throw you out. So Tan Boon Lian is one of those. So I run around with the 50G Master so that I can shoot handheld. And Tan Boon Lian has very abstract floor tiles, abstract as in when you shoot it this way. Yeah, they're very 8-bit. They look like 8-bit games. These 3 blocks of rental flats in Red Hill are going to be demolished soon. So if you want, please go ahead and take photos there. This was shot for the 1635G Master Mark II campaign. And I believe that Sony is using this image. And my last image, just shot recently, from the top of Gorko Midtown at Beach Road. Because Gorko is my client, so I have access to the building, and I can go up to the roof to photograph from the roof as and when I need to. So one of the evenings during the sunsets, there was this great, backlit view of Orchard Road. So I went up there and I shot it. And when I was shooting it, I was just thinking like how much of Orchard Road is going to change after this. So maybe it would be worth revisiting it in another 5 years, 10 years to see what it's like. So, okay, that's the last image. I think we can get some time to do Q&A now. And we can talk a little bit. If you have any specific questions about specific images, let me know. If you want to know what equipment I use, also can what I already say. Last time, people will ask what film you use. So, we don't have that question anymore.
Okie dokes. Ladies and gentlemen, as we proceed to Q&A, can we give a round of applause for Darren? Okay, so now we're opening the floor to questions. Anybody with questions for Darren? History of Singapore, architecture, photography, anything you want to ask him, please raise your hands. I'll come to you with the mic. Oh, yes, okay, give me a moment.
Hi, can I ask, how do you plan your shots and how do you do your research besides Google Maps? Like, how do you do your research?
Google Maps is very important because Google Maps gives you street view. You also can do 3D, so you can actually see from what angle you can shoot a building from. So Google Maps is actually very important. So the other thing that is very important to me is the weather. So I have like 5 weather apps, and I use them all at the same time because Singapore weather very unpredictable and usually not accurate. Right? Besides, even though one of the apps is called AccuWeather, so I always say that. And then there's the NEA app. So NEA stands for Not Everyday Accurate. and so, but we use them all together because if 3 or 4 of the 5 apps say the same thing, then likely it will happen. Yeah, so that's how I do it. Google Street View, Google Earth. Actually, I also make a lot of phone calls to people to ask if anybody has access to certain places so that I can get the shots. Other than that, what do I do? Oh, I have an app called Sunseeker which allows me to see where the sun is shining, in what direction, at what time of the day, at what time of the year. So the app is very, very important to me. I use it all the time. It's a paid app, but it shows you how the sun falls in any given location in the world.
Okay, thank you so much for that question. Any more? Any more questions for Darren? Okay, I'll get to you.
Thank you for the talk, I'm Sid Yong. Is it right to say then, let's say for this picture, you come in with a preconceived idea of what you think you want it to look like, and then go search for the information to make it look like that?
Okay, so what happens is, there are some images where you can pre-visualize. So you have a rough idea of what you think you may get. Sometimes the actual image that you get is 100% like it, but most of the time it's not. But most of the time it will look different, but very often it will look better than what you pre-visualize. And also because of the vantage point, and with a long lens, I can make like 50 variations of this image, of this view, because I can zoom in, zoom out, hand left, hand right, all kinds of things, and I get all kinds of different pictures actually. So from the rooftop of this building on Beach Road, I actually have like several gigabytes of images, all showing different things. And I could probably give a talk just based on images that I shot from that rooftop, and they'll all be different.
All right, thank you so much. I think we got another question from the lady here, right? Okay.
Hi Darren, thank you for your talk. I'm just very curious in terms of, I saw like some of your photos, you actually had the full length of the building from top to bottom with sky and even below. And you already mentioned that in Singapore, most buildings are quite close together. So how do you achieve that, apart from using a wider lens or a longer lens? How did you manage to, how far back did you have to stand in order to get that full height?
Okay, so the thing is, because Singapore is so packed, right? Very often you don't get the luxury of backing up. So you back up the building. So a lot of my pictures are actually made with me against the wall, usually, because that's as far as I can go. And so I use shift lenses, which can help a bit, but they can't always do the whole building completely. So like what I said just now, I will just have to tilt the camera up, use a very, very wide lens, like 12, and then tilt, so that I can get sky. So once I have the sky in Photoshop, I will just correct the perspective back to a straight line. But when you do that, you lose a lot of file, so the file size decreases. And I try to only do that in cases where I have no choice, because I'm obsessed with big files.
Okay, thank you so much for that question. Do we have any more?
Yes.
Okay, in front here.
Hi Darren, just curious, right? I see a lot of residential, commercial work. Any thoughts or any reason why you don't shoot industrial or don't really feature industrial works in Singapore?
I do actually. It just doesn't. Yeah, I do shoot industrial projects. Sometimes it's commission, but very often it's for myself, because a lot of the industrial buildings in Singapore are also quite old, and they have gained some kind of historical significance. So one of the buildings that I photograph a lot that I like very much is this building called Ang Mo Kio Auto Point. I don't know if you are aware of it. It's a multi-story car workshop in Ang Mo Kio Industrial Estate, and it's one of the best examples of high-tech architecture where everything is put on the outside, the pipes, the columns, the ducting, everything. So look up that building. It's one of my favorite buildings.
Okay, thank you so much. I think at the front.
This one.
Yeah, at the front. Okay.
What is the purpose of a tilt shift lens?
So when you use a shift lens, I don't tilt, because tilt makes the perspective look like a toy, so you get very slightly focused. So I don't do the tilt, I only shift. So what a shift lens does is, if you keep your camera straight, a shift lens allows you to get more on top or more below by shifting the lens up and down. So you don't have to tilt the camera. So everything will remain straight, because the buildings are built straight. And if you shoot them like that, then they all look like they're falling over, and then you need to correct it in Photoshop. So for me, I try not to do that by using shift lenses, so that I can keep the building straight by keeping the camera straight and shifting the lens up and down. Yeah?
Yeah, got it.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yep, I think we still have time.
Yeah,
for-
go on.
Okay.
Go back. I just shot from City View, Henderson. There's a sky bridge, so you can go there, but you have to climb on the planter.
Sorry, Darren.
Yes.
I have been handed the mic, so I'm going to ask one last question. So, given your fascination with getting just the right angle and trying to include the whole building, any thought of mounting your cameras on some really massive commercial drones so that you can fly it to the exact position, or fly it up 10 stories so you can get the exact angle you want?
It's too much effort. Because because the CAS is a very painful organization to deal with. And I rather not. Okay, no, jokes aside, if you apply for a drone permit, you're really at the mercy of the authorities because they tell you when you can fly. Usually they will give you some shit time like 11 a.m. where the light is really bad. Then you can only fly at that time and it doesn't make sense because the images are not going to be nice. So I find other ways, unless I have no choice.
Okay, one last question. Sorry, first time, sorry. Later you need to ask him personally.
Can do two lah.
Okay, hi there. I love your photos. I'm similar in visual styling like yours, which is I'm very obsessed with straight lines. And sometimes I share your view that sometimes you're at the back of the wall and you can't really get the full image. Would you suggest doing a composite image of taking a portion of the building and then you just...
Oh, I know the right person to ask the question to. His name is Sidney, he's over there. He does this a lot. I try not to stitch my pictures because I don't like to correct for skew and all that individually within the pictures. So I just try and shoot it as one image. Or if I use a shift lens, I can shift left, right, up, down, and then I can stitch. That one is much easier. So technically, I'm really not that great. So I don't do like 9-row, 3-row panels and things like that. I do know a lot of people, my friends who do. So you can ask them. One last.
Yeah, okay, last one, right?
Thanks for taking my questions. Actually, I have two. I'm a fan of your Facebook page. I always go to see your latest image. Just wondering, do you have an architecture background that allows you to appreciate buildings, and that's why you take interest in? That's my first question. And the second is, do you actually use filters extensively to create the images? Thanks.
So first question, I'm trained as a sociologist, so no architectural background. So all the architecture stuff is learned through osmosis. I just absorb from my architect friends. And also you read out because the necessity is the best teacher. So if you want to learn something, you will read out on it. So that's the first question. Second question, no, I don't use filters. I do, it's a UV filter to protect the front element of the lens. That's the only filter that I use. Sometimes I use a circular polarizer because I do some commercial work where I need to get rid of reflections. So those are really the only two filters that I use. Yeah, I don't use ND filters to get like long exposure in the day and things like that. Maybe I should. It sounds quite interesting. But I don't. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Darren. Thank you so much for your questions.
Thank you, everyone.
Give a one more round of applause for Darren, please. Yes, Darren. So you know where you should stand in the middle. Take your spotlight.